2 weeks after my dad died, my family threw a party. For my sister, no one mentioned his name. No one asked if I was okay. But at the will reading, everything changed. My name, the house, his final words, and what he left behind shattered everything they thought they knew about me. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. I'll never forget that phone call. I was standing in the grocery store, holding a loaf of bread, thinking about what to make for dinner. My phone rang, and everything around me just paused. I didn't recognize the number, but I picked up anyway. "Hey, it's about Dad," my uncle said, his voice low and trembling. "He's gone." I didn't even register what he meant at first. Gone. Like, gone where? Then it hit me. Gone, as in forever. Gone, as in never coming back. My breath caught in my throat and my vision blurred. The loaf of bread slipped from my hand. I stood there in the aisle, completely still, feeling like the world had cracked open beneath me. A woman passing by gave me a strange look, but I couldn't move. I somehow made it out of the store and drove home, blinking back tears and trying not to crash. I kept thinking, this can't be real. I had just spoken to Dad last week. He sounded tired, sure, but not like this. When I walked into the house, I expected silence. Maybe some concern, maybe even a hug, but the TV was blaring. Music was playing, and my mom was hanging up decorations in the dining room. Chloe Dash, my younger sister, was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone with one leg hanging over the armrest like nothing had happened. I stood in the doorway, trying to steady my voice. "Dad's gone," I said. "Uncle Mike just called me. He passed away this morning." There was a beat of silence. Chloe looked up at me for a second, just a second, and then shrugged. I feel bad," she muttered, barely glancing away from her screen. "But can we please not let this ruin my birthday week?" I stared at her, unable to believe what I'd just heard. My dad had just died. Our dad. And all she could think about was her birthday. I turned to my mom, hoping for some kind of, human response. She sighed, gently placing a balloon weight on the table. "Look, honey," she said in a tone like she was trying to calm down a child. "Your father wouldn't want us to stop living. Chloe's birthday is important too. We'll handle the arrangements, of course, but life has to go on." I wanted to scream or cry or disappear. Instead, I just stood there, completely frozen. My grief didn't fit in their schedule. My pain was an inconvenience to their celebration. Over the next few days, I tried to grieve in silence. I looked at old pictures of Dad. I played back old voicemails just to hear his voice. But while I was falling apart inside, the rest of the house was preparing for a party. There were balloons and banners and gift bags. Chloe even had the audacity to invite over 20 people. When I asked if we could maybe just keep it small this year, out of respect, Chloe rolled her eyes and stormed out of the room. Mom followed after her and said to me, "Why do you always have to make things about you?" I didn't respond, because anything I said would have made it worse. The day of the party came, and I considered just staying in my room, but Mom knocked and insisted I come down just for a little while. "Don't ruin the mood," she said, with a forced smile. So I came down. I sat in the corner while people laughed and sang and took selfies. Chloe was opening presents and talking about her birthday trip like nothing had happened. Not one person mentioned Dad. Not one person asked how I was doing at one point. Someone I barely knew came up and asked, "Why are you so moody? It's a party, man." That was it. "I just lost my dad," I said loudly. Maybe too loudly. Everything went quiet. People turned to look. Chloe shot me a death glare and Mom rushed over, whispering harshly, "Why would you say that now? You embarrassed Chloe." I didn't say a word. I just walked upstairs, grabbed my jacket, and left the house too. Weeks later, we were all called to Dad's lawyer's office for the will reading. I expected nothing. Honestly, I was just there to show respect. I figured Mom would get everything. Chloe too. They always did. But the lawyer opened the envelope and began reading. And what he said next left everyone speechless. "To my daughter, Chloe," he read, "I leave my love and a letter explaining my wishes." Chloe blinked. "Wait, what?" Then he turned to me. "To my son Lucas," he continued, "I leave my home, my personal savings, and my journal, because he was the one who never made me feel alone." I sat there, stunned. Chloe exploded. "What? This has to be a mistake. He always said I was his favorite," the lawyer calmly replied. These were his exact words and instructions. Later that night, I opened Dad's journal. Inside were memories, reflections, and me. Page after page about our conversations, about how I checked in on him, about how I listened. One line read, "Lucas gave me peace in the noise. He showed up when no one else did, and just like that, everything made sense. Dad didn't just leave me the house or the money. He left me the truth. He left me a quiet reminder that love isn't always loud, but it's always remembered. The following days felt like walking through fog. I'd wake up every morning with this strange, sinking feeling in my chest, like I'd forgotten something, and then remembered it was him, Dad, gone. That finality hit me in waves, never all at once. And each time it knocked the air out of me just a little more. I barely slept. I barely ate. Sometimes I'd stand in the kitchen staring at the fridge with no idea what I even opened it for. But inside the house, you'd never know we had just lost someone. It was like nothing had happened. Instead of mourning, my mom threw herself into party prep. Within 2 days, the living room was filled with colorful streamers, ribbons, and piles of unopened Amazon packages. Each box held something for Chloe's birthday: confetti balloons, fairy lights, a karaoke mic, even a silver banner that said "Birthday Queen." I just watched in silence, hoping they'd realize how absurd it all looked. But they didn't. Chloe, of course, was the star of the show. She was texting nonstop, planning the guest list, choosing a menu, and deciding on which birthday look she should go with: blue sparkly dress or pink leather jacket. Every time I glanced at her, she was either scrolling Instagram or laughing with friends on speakerphone. I really tried to ask for a little sensitivity. One morning I approached Mom as she stood arranging cupcakes into a cake tower.
Dude.
You think, I began, choosing my words carefully, we could maybe push the party back a few days. Just give everyone time to process. She didn't even turn around. Your father would want Chloe to be happy, she said, her voice sharp. Life doesn't stop because someone dies. I blinked. I didn't know what hurt more, what she said or how casually she said it. Like it was obvious. Like my grief was unreasonable. Maybe she was right. Maybe life doesn't stop. But grief doesn't care about schedules. It doesn't wait its turn. It shows up uninvited, stays too long, and refuses to be ignored. That night, I sat alone in my room. I hadn't turned the light on. The only thing I held was Dad's old watch, the one he used to wear every day until he got sick and his wrists became too thin. The metal was cold in my hand. I could still smell his aftershave on the strap. Outside my room, the rest of the house was bursting with noise, laughter, shouting, music. Chloe had a few friends over already, doing a pre-birthday hangout. They were testing the karaoke mic badly. Someone was singing off-key to an old Taylor Swift song. Someone else was giggling uncontrollably, and me. I was curled up under the covers, crying into my pillow, wishing I could just disappear for a while. It was strange. How could a house feel so full and yet so empty at the same time? The day of the party came faster than I expected. I thought maybe someone would say, "Let's take a moment for Dad, let's remember him today." But no one did. Instead, Chloe bounced around in a glittery outfit, taking selfies with guests. Mom wore a forced smile the entire evening, like she was hosting some charity gala. People were drinking, clapping, doing karaoke. It was loud, messy, and so far removed from where my heart was that I felt like a ghost floating through someone else's life. At one point, a girl I didn't recognize, maybe one of Chloe's college friends, walked up to me and said, "You look like someone died or something." The irony almost made me laugh. Almost I didn't respond. I just walked to the back of the room and sat quietly near the window, away from the crowd. From there, I could see the reflection of the party in the glass. Everyone smiling, dancing, having fun. And I could also see myself isolated, withdrawn. Clutching Dad's watch like it was some kind of anchor in a storm. No one really noticed. Me. No one really asked anything. That was the part that stung the most, not that they moved on quickly, but that they expected me to as well. And in that moment, something shifted. I realized I couldn't force them to feel what I felt. Couldn't beg them to mourn the way I needed to mourn. Everyone processes loss differently, I guess. Some people keep busy, some people cry, and some people throw birthday parties as if death is just a scheduling conflict. But I also realized something else. It was okay for me to feel what I felt, even if no one else did. I wasn't wrong for grieving. I wasn't weak or selfish. I was simply human. A son who lost his father. A boy trying to find peace in a house full of noise. So I got up from my seat, walked quietly upstairs, and closed the door behind me. I turned off my phone, put on Dad's watch, crawled into bed. And for the first time in days, I let the silence hold me. Because in that silence, I could finally hear him. Chloe's birthday arrived with all the volume and color of a celebration that didn't belong in our house. Not after what had happened. Not with the kind of grief I was carrying. It was like someone took my pain and painted over it with glitter and neon streamers, pretending it wasn't even there. From the moment I came downstairs, it felt wrong. The house smelled like vanilla cupcakes and strong perfume. There were pink and silver balloons taped to every surface, and loud pop music thudded from the living room speakers. People I didn't even recognize were pouring drinks, laughing like they'd known Chloe their whole lives. I had tried to stay upstairs. I really did, but Mom knocked on my door, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just come down for a little bit," she said. "Don't ruin the mood. Ruin the mood." My father had died less than 2 weeks ago. Was I not allowed to be sad in my own home? Still, I came down, not for the party. For the idea that maybe somewhere in this madness, someone would remember why I was so quiet. Someone would understand, but no one did. They all looked right through me. I found a spot in the corner, behind the couch, next to a side table covered in empty soda cans and tissue paper from unwrapped gifts. I sat quietly, like a piece of forgotten furniture. Chloe was in the center of the room, glowing with attention. She wore a sparkly dress, her hair curled to perfection. She beamed with every gift. She opened makeup kits, a designer purse, some bracelet from a guy who clearly wanted more than friendship, and every time someone laughed too loudly or clinked their glass, it felt like a slap, not because they were happy, but because I wasn't allowed to not be. I watched her peel back wrapping paper with painted nails, read birthday cards filled with love and inside jokes, and squeal over things she didn't need. And somewhere deep inside me, something cracked. A guy I didn't recognize, a smug, probably from her college, stumbled over to grab another drink and caught my eye. "You good, man?" he asked, grinning. He laughed. "You look like someone died or something." I turned slowly toward him. My throat tightened. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I just lost my dad," I said, louder than I meant to. Not yelling, just loud enough for the entire room to hear. Everything stopped. The music, the laughter, the drinking, all of it hung in the air like smoke. Heads turned, people stared, and Chloe, her jaw dropped, like I had just punched someone. Mom came rushing over, her face pale but her eyes furious. She leaned in, trying not to make a scene, but doing it anyway. "Why would you say that now?" she hissed under her breath. "You embarrassed?" "Chloe," I blinked. Embarrassed Chloe. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. That was it. That was the exact moment I realized something inside me had changed. I stood up, slowly, calmly. I didn't say a word, didn't apologize. I just turned around, walked out the front door, and kept walking. No one followed me. The cool night air hit my face like a slap, but it felt better than the suffocating atmosphere inside. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just walked. Streetlights flickered overhead. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. But all I could hear was the echo of those words in my mind. Why would you say that now? Maybe because no one else would. Maybe because pretending everything was fine had become more painful than the truth itself. Maybe because grief doesn't work on a party schedule. I ended up at the park down the street, the same one Dad used to take me to when I was little. He'd push me on the swings and tell me stories about growing up without smartphones or streaming. I sat on one of those old swings now, staring up at the stars, wondering if he could see me. If he was proud that I didn't just sit there and smile through the pain. I thought about everything: the party, Chloe's selfishness, Mom's denial. I thought about how quickly they moved on, how easily they tucked their grief into the back of a drawer and replaced it with gift bags and photo ops. And yet, here I was, carrying all of it. Their silence, their smiles, their expectations. Like a weight on my chest I hadn't agreed to carry. The thing that hurt the most wasn't that they celebrated. It was that they never even asked how I was doing. Not once. Eventually I stood up from the swing and walked back home, but I didn't go inside. I sat on the porch until the house went dark. The party had ended. The guests were gone. The fake smiles were packed away with the decorations. I crept upstairs quietly and closed the door behind me. No one asked where I'd gone. No one knocked. No one even noticed I had disappeared for 3 hours. And I think in that moment, I accepted something. Sometimes the people you expect comfort from simply don't have it to give. Sometimes you'll grieve alone, and sometimes you'll have to be your own witness. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat in bed holding Dad's old watch again, feeling the weight of what was and what would never be. And for the first time since he passed, I allowed myself to let go of what I wished my family would be and finally saw them for who they were. 2 weeks later, we were called to Dad's lawyer's office for the will reading. By then, the house had returned to normal, if you could call it that. The birthday balloons had deflated and been tossed out. The leftover cake was gone, and no one had mentioned Dad in days. It was like he'd quietly disappeared, not just from life, but from memory. Mom reminded us about the meeting with the lawyer like it was just another errand. "Don't be late," she said, like she was talking about a dentist appointment. She drove us there in silence. Chloe sat in the front seat, legs crossed, chewing gum and texting nonstop. I sat in the back, staring out the window, feeling like I didn't belong in that car or in that family. We arrived at a small law firm tucked between a florist and a dry cleaner. It was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made you feel like something important was about to happen, even if no one else around you seemed to feel it. The lawyer was a thin, older man with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. His office smelled like old books and lemon polish. There was one large mahogany table and 3 chairs. He gestured for us to sit, then took his seat and opened a brown folder. Mom sat with her hands folded neatly in her lap, her face unreadable, cold, like always. Chloe didn't even bother pretending to care. She was still glued to her phone, thumbs flying, earbuds in one ear. I felt invisible between them like furniture. I expected nothing. Honestly, less than nothing. I figured that Will would be standard everything to Mom, maybe a little too Chloe and me. I'd get a photo or a pat on the back. I was used to being the background character in this family drama. But then the lawyer began reading to my daughter. "Chloe," he said, "I leave my love. And a letter." The room froze. I looked at Chloe. She blinked, slowly pulled her earbuds out. "What?" she said, her voice rising. "Just a letter." Mom turned sharply toward the lawyer. "Is that it?" she asked, her voice unusually tight. "That can't be right." The lawyer didn't flinch. He turned the page to "My son, Lucas," he continued. "I leave my home, my savings, and my private journal." Because he was the only one who showed me real compassion and presence during my final days, the air got heavy. I felt like the walls were closing in. My hands started to shake just slightly. Did he just say, me, the house? His savings? His journal? I couldn't speak, couldn't even look up. I just sat there staring at the table, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it echo in my ears. Chloe wasn't quiet for long. "What is this?" she shouted, standing up. "This has to be a mistake. I'm his daughter too. I'm his only daughter." The lawyer calmly adjusted his glasses and looked her straight in the eyes. "This was your father's final and very clear wish. He signed it, notarized it, and left instructions that it be honored without dispute. But I was his favorite," she snapped. "He always told me that." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. I looked at Mom. Her jaw was clenched. Her hands were gripping her purse like it might fly away. She didn't say anything either, but her silence screamed louder than any words could have. No one congratulated me. No one said, "That's fair," or "You deserve it." And maybe that was the point. I wasn't supposed to get anything. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't the favorite. I was the one they barely remembered at dinner. The one who sat at the end of the table and never got asked how school was. The one who didn't complain or argue or demand attention. But apparently, Dad noticed when we left the lawyer's office, no one spoke. Chloe stomped ahead still. Fuming, Mom walked like a statue. I followed behind them, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life by mistake. Later that night, the cover worn and smooth from years of handling. Inside, page after page, of handwritten thoughts, memories, letters never sent. It was like stepping into his mind. And he had written about me, about how I called him during his treatments, about how I asked real questions when no one else would, about how I showed up not just physically but emotionally. When he was scared, when he felt invisible. One entry stopped me cold. Lucas was there, quietly, but always. When I couldn't sleep, he stayed on the phone. When my hands shook too much to write, he wrote for me. When no one noticed my pain, he did. I didn't know what to do with that. I'd spent so long feeling like I didn't matter, like I was just extra unimportant. But now, here he was validating me in the one way I never expected. This wasn't about the money or the house, it was about being seen. For the first time in my life, my father had chosen me, not out of obligation, not by default, but because he wanted to. And even though he was gone, that choice healed something in me I didn't know was broken. So I sat there in the quiet, holding his journal, not as the forgotten son but as the one he remembered most. That night, I opened Dad's journal. It was heavier than I expected, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The kind of weight you don't notice until you're holding it in your hands, staring at the cover, too afraid to flip it open. The lawyer had handed it to me after the will reading, saying only he wanted you to have this. I had tucked it under my arm like it was just another item to carry home. But now, sitting alone in my room, the gravity of what I was holding finally hit me. I took a deep breath and opened it. The handwriting was familiar, neat, but with the occasional shaky line, like someone trying to steady themselves while writing, through pain. And that's exactly what it was. This wasn't a polished diary. It was raw, real. Each page felt like a window into the private world of a man I thought I knew, but didn't fully understand until now. The first few entries were about his health doctor visits, symptoms, fear. Then came thoughts about life, observations about how people treated him, how the house always seemed quieter when he walked in, how sometimes even surrounded by family, he felt completely alone, and then he started writing about me. I stopped, breathing for a moment. At first it was simple things. Lucas called tonight. Didn't say much, but stayed on the line while I sat in silence. I needed that. He brought me soup today. Didn't even mention it was homemade, but I could tell it tasted like someone cared. Then the entries deepened, became more emotional. I watch him sometimes when he thinks I'm sleeping. He looks so tired, like he's carrying more than just my pain. But he never says a word. Page after page, memory after memory. Moments I didn't think mattered. Times I thought I was just doing the bare minimum. Apparently, to him, they meant everything. And then I reached an entry that broke me. Chloe loves things. New shoes, party lights, attention, but Lucas, he loves people. He loves me. He makes me feel like I still matter. And that's a gift I didn't think I'd ever get from anyone again. I didn't even realize I was crying until the ink on the page blurred under a tear that dropped straight from my chin. I sat there, holding the journal like it was a lifeline. My chest ached, but not in the way it had been aching the last 2 weeks. This was different. This was released because, in that moment, all the bitterness toward Chloe, toward Mom, even toward the party started to fade. Not completely, but enough to see it clearly. It had never really been about the house or the money, or who got what in the will. It was about this validation, recognition, proof that I wasn't invisible, that the nights I stayed awake to comfort him meant something, that the silent loyalty I showed was noticed, remembered, loved. I had spent so long feeling like a shadow in my own home, the one who kept quiet so others could be loud, the one who made space so others could take it. I had started to believe that maybe that's all I'd ever be. But this journal told a different story, a story where I was the one who showed up, the one who mattered in the final days, the one who loved without needing to be seen and yet was seen anyway. Dad saw me, maybe not always when he was alive, maybe not in big public ways, and even in death he made sure I knew that. He didn't leave me the journal to stir the pot. He didn't give me the house to spark drama. He left those things to say, you were there? When it counted, I closed the book gently, like it was something sacred. And in a way, it was more than a record of his final days. It was a quiet love letter, not the flowery kind, not loud or dramatic, just honest, steady. Like him, I turned off my lamp and lay in bed, the journal resting on my chest. My breathing finally slowed. My mind wasn't racing anymore, and I realized, for the first time since he passed, I wasn't angry. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't even sad in the same way I was grateful, because some people go their whole lives wondering if they ever really mattered to the people they loved, and I don't have to wonder anymore if this story touched your heart. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment that matters. And let me know in the comments, have you ever felt unseen by your own family?